The church was perfect. White roses everywhere. Exactly like I'd dreamed since I was 7 years old. 200 guests filled every pew. Their faces turned toward me with those soft, expectant smiles people save for brides. My daddy had passed 2 years before, so my Uncle James walked beside me, his arm steady under mine. The organ played, each note floating up to those high cathedral ceilings. But Marcus wasn't at the altar. His best man, Devon, stood there instead, and the look on his face made my stomach drop 3 floors down. I kept walking because, what else do you do when 200 people are watching? When you're wearing a dress that cost 3 months of salary? When your mama is in the front row dabbing her eyes with the handkerchief she embroidered specifically for this moment? I reached the altar. Devon wouldn't look at me. Marcus. Where's Marcus? I mouthed. Devon pulled out his phone. His hands were shaking. He turned the screen toward me, and I read the text message that would split my life into before and after. I can't do this. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Naomi. I just can't. The church went completely silent. Someone coughed. A baby started crying in the back. I stood there in my perfect dress with my perfect flowers, reading those words over and over like maybe they'd change if I just looked hard enough. I can't do this. My Uncle James caught me before my knees hit the floor. Welcome back to my channel, family. Before we continue with Naomi's story, I need you to do something for me. Hit that subscribe button right now, because this story is going to take you on an emotional journey about heartbreak, healing, and discovering that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you is actually the setup for your greatest blessing. If you're new here, drop a like and comment below telling me where you're watching from. Now let's get back to Naomi, because what happens next will change everything. 3 weeks later, I was still in Atlanta, still breathing somehow, still showing up to my job at the Cordelia Grand Hotel even though every single day felt like walking through concrete. The wedding vendors still wanted their money. The venue, the caterer, the photographer who captured exactly 0 moments of happiness. Turns out when the groom disappears, the bride still gets the bill. So I picked up every shift they'd give me. Morning, afternoon, doubles, overnights. Anything to not be alone with my thoughts in that apartment where Marcus's toothbrush still sat in the holder because I couldn't bring myself to throw it away. It was a Tuesday morning, early June, when everything changed again. I was assigned to the penthouse level, which normally I'd be excited about because the tips were better. But I'd stopped feeling excited about anything. I pushed my cart down the hallway, my reflection catching in those gold-trimmed mirrors they had everywhere. I looked terrible. I knew I looked terrible. Bun that I'd stopped caring about 3 days ago. The concealer under my eyes was fighting a losing battle. Room 4801. The presidential suite. I knocked twice. Come in, a voice called. Male, accent I couldn't quite place. I pushed the door open and the suite was massive. Floor-to-ceiling windows, showing all of Atlanta spread out like a postcard. But I barely noticed because there was a man standing by those windows, phone pressed to his ear, speaking rapid fire in what I'd later learn was Korean. He glanced at me, held up one finger. 1 minute. I nodded and started setting up the breakfast service on the dining table. My hands moved automatically. Coffee pot here? Cream there? Fruit plate in the center? I'd done this 1,000 times. He ended his call and turned fully toward me. That's when I actually looked at him. Tall, probably 6'1", wearing a perfectly tailored black suit, even though it wasn't even 8 in the morning. His face was the kind of handsome that didn't seem real, like someone had designed it on a computer. Sharp jawline, dark eyes that seemed to actually see things instead of just looking at them. Thank you, he said, his English clear but careful. You look tired. Are you all right? The question was so unexpected, so genuinely asked, that I felt my throat close up. People had been asking me that for weeks, but they asked it the way people do when they want you to say yes so they can move on. He asked it like he actually wanted to know the answer. I'm fine. I lied. Is there anything else you need, sir? He studied me for a long moment, and I felt suddenly exposed, like he could see right through the uniform and the makeup and the smile I'd been forcing for 21 days straight. You have a tan line, he said quietly. On your ring finger. Recent. My hand flew instinctively to cover it. I should get back to work. Wait. Please. He gestured to the chair across from where he stood. Have you eaten breakfast? Sir. I can't. I'm working. I'm asking you to join me. As a guest. His smile was slight, but warm. I eat alone in hotel rooms 300 days a year. The company would be appreciated. And maybe it was because I was so tired, or because something in his voice felt safe, or because I hadn't had a real conversation in weeks that didn't involve someone pitying me. But I sat down. He poured coffee for both of us, which felt wrong because guests didn't pour coffee for staff, but he did it anyway. We sat there in that enormous suite with Atlanta sprawling below us. And for the first time in 21 days, I took a breath that didn't hurt. I'm Dae-won, he said. Kang Dae-won. Naomi Carter. What happened to your ring, Naomi Carter? And God help me, I told him. I told this complete stranger everything. How Marcus and I had been together for 4 years. How he'd proposed at my favorite restaurant with my whole family there. How we'd planned every detail of our wedding. How excited I'd been. How sure I'd been that this was my forever. How he'd left me standing at the altar in front of 200 people, without even the courage to say it to my face. The words poured out of me like water from a broken dam. And Dae-won just listened. He didn't interrupt, or offer those useless platitudes people always offer. He just listened with his full attention, like my story mattered, like my pain was worth holding space for. When I finally stopped talking, my coffee had gone cold, and my eyes were wet, and I felt embarrassed and relieved all at once. I'm sorry, I said, wiping my face. You didn't ask for all that. Yes, I did. Dae-won leaned forward slightly. Can I tell you something, Naomi? That man who left you did the most selfish thing a person can do. But he also did you a favor. I laughed, bitter and sharp. A favor? Really? He showed you who he was before you wasted your entire life on him. Before you had children with him. Before you built a whole life that would be much more complicated to leave. He showed you that when things got real, when commitment got scary, he runs. Now you know. Now you're free. Free? I don't feel free. I feel humiliated. I feel stupid. I feel like everyone in this city is whispering about the girl who got left at the altar. Let them whisper. Their opinions have nothing to do with your worth. Dae-won's voice was firm, certain in a way that made me almost believe him. You seem like someone who spent a lot of time making yourself small for someone who couldn't see your value anyway. The words hit me right in the chest because they were true. I had made myself small. I'd turned down a promotion because Marcus said it would mess with our schedule. I'd stopped seeing some friends because he said they were too loud, too much. I'd been shrinking myself for 4 years, trying to be the right size for a man who was going to leave me anyway. What do you do, Naomi? What did you want to be before life got in the way? I wanted to work in international hospitality. I studied it in college. I wanted to travel, see the world, work in hotels, in different countries. But then Marcus and I got serious, and he didn't want to leave Atlanta, so I just stayed. Dae-won was quiet for a moment, his fingers tapping against his coffee cup. Then he said, I have a proposition for you. I looked up, confused. I'm the CEO of Hansong Group. We own hotels, resorts, and commercial properties throughout Asia. I'm based in Seoul. I need a personal assistant, someone I can trust. Someone who understands hospitality and isn't afraid of hard work. The position comes with a salary that would let you pay off every debt from that wedding in 6 months. It comes with an apartment, language classes, full benefits. He paused. It comes with a fresh start, Naomi. A real one. My heart was pounding. You don't even know me. I know you showed up to work today, even though your life fell apart 3 weeks ago. I know you carry yourself with grace even when you're barely holding it together. I know you're honest because you could have lied about that ring and you didn't. He met my eyes. I've been doing this a long time. I'm good at reading people. And I see someone who deserves a second chance at the life she wanted. I can't just leave. My mom, my job, my entire life is here. Your entire life. That includes, what? An apartment full of memories that hurt you? A city where everyone knows your story? A job where you're working yourself to death to pay for a wedding that didn't happen? Dae-won's voice was gentle but challenging. What's really keeping you here, Naomi? Opportunity or fear? The question hung in the air between us. I wanted to argue. I wanted to list 1,000 reasons why this was crazy, why I couldn't just fly across the world with a man I'd met 40 minutes ago. But every reason I tried to think of felt like an excuse, felt like fear dressed up as logic. I need time to think about it, I finally said. Of course. I'm here for 3 more days. Think about it. Talk to your family. But Naomi, life only offers you so many exits. Sometimes you have to be brave enough to take one. I stood up, my legs shaky. Thank you for breakfast. And for listening. Thank you for being honest. It's rarer than you'd think. I left that suite in a daze. I finished my shift on autopilot. And that night, I sat at my mama's kitchen table and told her everything. Mama was quiet for a long time, her hands wrapped around her teacup, that same teacup she'd been using since I was little. Baby, when your daddy died, I thought my life was over. I thought I'd used up all my chances at happiness. But you know what I learned? Podik? God closes doors sometimes not to punish us but to force us down the hallway toward something better. That man who left you at that altar? That door is closed, baby. Locked and bolted. Now here's this hallway. And it's scary because you don't know where it leads. But maybe that's exactly why you should walk it. What if I fail? What if I get over there and I'm terrible at it, and I have to come home even more broken than I am now? Then you come home, and we figure it out together. But at least you'll come home knowing you tried. Right now you'd just be staying because you're scared. And, baby, fear ain't never built nothing worth having. So I called Dae-won the next morning, and said yes. 6 months later, I was standing in the office of Hansong Group's headquarters, 43 stories above Seoul, looking out at a city that had somehow become home. Naomi, you have the Kim meeting at 3, then the dinner with the Dubai investors at 7. My assistant, Ji-won, appeared beside me with the tablet she was never without. And Dae-won asked if you could review the Busan proposal before end of day. Got it, thanks Ji-won. She smiled at me, that warm smile she'd been giving me since the day I arrived, terrified and jet-lagged and completely overwhelmed. Your Korean is getting really good, she said in Korean. I'm trying, I responded back, still clumsy with the pronunciation but getting better every day. I'd cried myself to sleep the first week, overwhelmed by the language barrier, the cultural differences, the sheer foreignness of everything. But Dae-won had been patient. He'd hired a tutor. He'd introduced me to people. He'd given me work that challenged me, that made me remember I was smart and capable and good at what I did. And somewhere between the language lessons and the business meetings and the late nights working on proposals, I'd started to feel like myself again. Not the self I'd been with Marcus, small and accommodating, and always worried about being too much. But a bigger self. A self I didn't even know was possible. Dae-won and I had become friends. Real friends. We worked together seamlessly. He trusted my judgment. He asked my opinion. He celebrated my wins and helped me learn from my losses. And slowly, so slowly I almost didn't notice, something had shifted. The way he looked at me during meetings. The way his hand would brush mine. When we walked side by side. The way he remembered that I hated cucumbers and always made sure they were removed from my lunch. The way he'd started teaching me Korean himself sometimes. Our heads bent close together, over vocabulary lists. His voice soft and patient. And the way I'd started noticing everything about him. The way he rolled his sleeves up when he was focused. The way he switched languages mid-sentence when he got excited. The way he treated everyone, from the CEO of a partner company to the cleaning staff, with the same respect. The way he'd rebuilt my entire sense of what love could look like, without ever saying the word. It was late October when everything came to a head. Hansong Group was hosting a gala for potential investors. One of those massive events with 500 people in formal wear, drinking champagne, and making deals. I'd been planning it for weeks, and I wore a dress that Ji-won had helped me pick out, deep emerald green that made my skin glow. Dae-won found me on the balcony, taking a break from the noise inside. "You did incredible work tonight," he said, coming to stand beside me. "The event is flawless. We did incredible work. I couldn't have pulled this off without you." We stood there, in comfortable silence, the city lights of Seoul spreading out forever below us. Then, Dae-won spoke again, his voice quieter. "Naomi, can I tell you something? Always. When I met you 6 months ago, I thought I was offering you a job, a chance to start over. But the truth is, you gave me something too." He turned to face me fully. "You reminded me what it feels like to look forward to coming to work, to trust someone completely, to laugh genuinely. You reminded me that life is supposed to feel full, not just busy." My heart was hammering against my ribs. "Dae-won, I'm in love with you. I've been in love with you for months now. But I didn't want to say anything because you'd been hurt so badly, and I didn't want to be another man asking you for something you weren't ready to give. But Naomi, I can't keep pretending that what I feel for you is just respect, or friendship, or admiration. It's all of those things. But it's also more. It's everything." I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. All I could do was feel the truth of his words, settling into my chest, like they'd been waiting there all along. "I'm terrified," I whispered. "I'm terrified of being wrong again. Of trusting again, and having it break me. I know. And I can't promise you won't ever be hurt again, because life doesn't work that way. But I can promise you this. I will never leave you wondering where you stand. I will never make you guess if you matter. I will never walk away when things get hard. You will always, always know that you are valued, that you are seen, that you are loved." And then he kissed me, soft and careful and full of promise. And every broken piece of my heart that I thought Marcus had destroyed forever suddenly felt like maybe they'd been waiting to be put back together by the right hands. We spent the next 2 months in this bubble of happiness, keeping our relationship quiet from the office gossip, but letting ourselves just be together. Dae-won took me to his favorite restaurants, taught me to make kimchi with his grandmother, held my hand on long walks through Seoul's neighborhoods. We talked about everything, our childhoods, our dreams, our fears. He met my mama over video call, and she loved him immediately. I could see it in her eyes. I'd almost forgotten that Marcus existed until the day I saw my face in a business magazine. It was late December. I was having coffee with Ji-won when she suddenly grabbed my arm. "Naomi, is this you?" She showed me her phone. Forbes Asia, their feature on rising business leaders. And there I was in a photo from the gala, standing next to Dae-won, both of us smiling. The caption read, "Kang Dae-won, CEO of Hansong Group, with his executive assistant and rumored partner, Naomi Carter, at the annual investor summit. Partner." The word felt too small and too big at the same time. That article went everywhere. LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter. By the end of the day, my social media was flooded with messages. Old friends from college, cousins I hadn't talked to in years, random people from high school, and one message from Marcus Reynolds. Naomi, I saw your photo. You look amazing. I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from, but I've been thinking about you a lot. I made the biggest mistake of my life when I left you. I was scared and stupid, and I've regretted it every single day. Can we talk? Please? I stared at that message for a long time. A year ago, 6 months ago, maybe even 3 months ago, I might have felt something. Anger, vindication, even some twisted satisfaction that he finally realized what he'd lost. But now I just felt nothing. He was a stranger, someone from a different life, someone who'd hurt a version of me that didn't exist anymore. I showed the message to Dae-won that night. We were at his apartment, cooking dinner together, something we'd started doing on weekends. He read it carefully, then looked at me. What do you want to do? I don't know. Part of me wants to ignore it. But part of me thinks maybe I need to respond, to close that door completely. Dae-won nodded slowly. If you need to talk to him, I understand. I trust you. Naomi. Whatever you need to heal, I support it. But 3 days later, the decision was taken out of my hands. I was leaving the Hansung building after a late meeting when I saw him. Marcus, standing right there on the sidewalk, wearing a coat that looked too thin for Seoul's winter, looking lost and out of place. Naomi, he called out. I froze. What are you doing here? I needed to see you. To talk to you in person. You wouldn't respond to my messages. So you flew to Korea? Marcus, that's crazy. No. What's crazy is letting you go. What's crazy is thinking I could do better than you. What's crazy is spending the last year realizing I destroyed the best thing that ever happened to me. Before I could respond, the building doors opened behind me. Dae-won walked out, probably coming to find me since I was late. He took one look at Marcus, and I watched his entire body language shift, protective and alert. Is there a problem? Dae-won asked, his English perfect, his voice cool. Marcus looked between us, and I saw the moment he understood. This is him? The billionaire from the photo? Marcus, this is Kang Dae-won. Dae-won, this is Marcus. He flew here uninvited. Dae-won stepped closer to me, not possessive but present, a steadying force. Mr. Reynolds, I think you should leave. I'm not leaving until Naomi and I talk. Marcus's voice had that edge it used to get when he felt challenged. You don't know what we had. You can't just replace 4 years. You're right, Dae-won said calmly. I can't replace 4 years, but I also didn't abandon her at the altar. I didn't leave her in front of 200 people without the courage to face her. I didn't make her feel small or unworthy, or like she had to shrink herself to deserve love. So no, I'm not replacing what you had. I'm showing her what she deserves. Marcus's face went red. Naomi, come on. You're really going to choose this guy? You don't even know him. And that's when I finally found my voice. You're right. Marcus, I don't know him the way I knew you. I don't know all his childhood stories or the names of his elementary school teachers. But you know what I do know? I know that when I was broken, he helped me heal. I know that when I was lost, he helped me find myself. I know that every single day, he makes me feel valued and seen and respected. I know that he's never once made me question whether I matter. So maybe I don't know him the way I knew you, but I trust him in a way I could never trust you again. Marcus's eyes got wet. I made a mistake. One mistake. Are you really going to throw away everything we had because of one mistake? It wasn't one mistake, Marcus. It was the final mistake in a long line of moments where you showed me I wasn't your priority. Every time you dismissed my dreams. Every time you made me feel like I was asking for too much. Every time you chose your comfort over my happiness. That text message at the altar wasn't the problem. It was just the moment I finally couldn't ignore the truth anymore. I still love you, he whispered. No, you don't. You love the idea of me. The version of me that made you feel good about yourself. But you never loved me enough to actually choose me when it was hard. And I'm done settling for that kind of love. I turned to Dae-won. Can we go home? Of course. He took my hand, natural and easy, and we started walking. You'll regret this, Marcus called after us. Desperate now. When this doesn't work out, when he realizes you're not worth it, you'll regret this. I stopped and turned back one last time. Maybe it won't work out. Maybe Dae-won and I will crash and burn spectacularly, but at least I'll have tried for something real, something that makes me better instead of smaller. That's more than I can say for what we had. Goodbye, Marcus. Dae-won and I walked away together, leaving Marcus standing alone on that Seoul sidewalk, and I didn't look back. Not once. That night, curled up on Dae-won's couch with tea and blankets, I finally cried. Not for Marcus. Not for what I'd lost, but for what I'd almost settled for the life I'd almost accepted as enough. For the version of myself I'd almost given up on. Thank you, I told Dae-won, for seeing me when I couldn't see myself. You did the seeing, Naomi. I just held up the mirror. 1 year later, we got married. Not in a massive church with 200 guests. Just us, Dae-won's grandmother, my mama, and Uncle James, and a handful of close friends in a small traditional Korean garden. I wore a hanbok in soft pink, then changed into a simple white dress for the reception. Dae-won cried during his vows, which made me cry, which made everyone cry. It was perfect. That night, checking my nearly forgotten Instagram account, I saw that Marcus had viewed my wedding photos. No comment, no message, just a view. And I hoped, genuinely hoped, that wherever he was learning to be better. That he'd find someone he was brave enough to choose. That he'd grow into the kind of man who didn't run when love got real. But mostly, I hoped he understood that losing me wasn't the tragedy. The tragedy would have been if I'd stayed lost. Dae-won found me on the balcony of our honeymoon suite, looking out at the Seoul skyline that had become home. What are you thinking about? He asked, wrapping his arms around me from behind. I'm thinking about how a year and a half ago, I thought my life was over. I thought that church, that moment, that humiliation was the end of my story. But it wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. The real beginning. The best stories usually start after we think everything's fallen apart. I turned in his arms to face him. This man who'd seen me at my lowest and believed in the highest version of me anyway. You know what the crazy part is? If Marcus hadn't left me, I never would have met you. I never would have taken that job. I never would have discovered who I could be. So in a way, you should thank him, Dae-won said, smiling. Absolutely not. I laughed. But I can thank the universe for knowing what I needed, even when I didn't. He kissed me then, soft and sweet, and full of forever. And somewhere in Atlanta, Georgia, in a city that felt like a lifetime ago, a man who'd once left me at an altar watched photos of my happiness on a screen and finally understood the difference between losing someone and letting them go. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you is actually the door to your best life. You just have to be brave enough to walk through it. Even when you're terrified. Even when it means leaving behind everything familiar. Even when you can't see what's on the other side. I walked through that door. And on the other side was everything I never knew I deserved. Everything I'd been too small to dream of when I was busy making myself fit into someone else's vision of who I should be. This is my story. This is how I went from the girl left crying at an altar To the woman who learned that sometimes love finds you in the most unexpected places, speaks to you in a different language, and shows you that home isn't a place. It's a person who sees every part of you and says, yes, this, you, always. For more emotional and interesting stories like this, do well to subscribe, like, and comments.